Think back to high school, when us, the students, were forced to read all those curriculum-based pieces of literature. Every year, millions of grade school students across the country have stories like The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, and Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck forever etched into the back of their minds after sitting through hours of class periods analyzing chapter after chapter of each book. Besides the fact that we have all read them, a separate thing that each of these classic novels has in common is that they're all filled with offensive language, or words and phrases that are today considered wildly inappropriate by readers. After doing hours of extensive research on this topic and reading all of the books at the high school level, I have become extremely well informed on this topic. Hi, I'm Alfonso Kirk. In the coming minutes, I will work to present to you the different words and phrases that these three books have that are considered offensive, explain how these phrases play a key role in each novel's cultural impact, and then address the opposition to preserving each story's original language. Admittedly, though culturally significant, these classic novels are all filled with words, quotes, and phrases that have a negative connotation and portray a negative message. Here's an example from Of Mice and Men, Chapter 2. Yes, sir. Jesus, we had fun. They let the nigger come in that night. Little Skinner, name of Smitty, took after the nigger. Done pretty good, too. The guys wouldn't let him use his feet, so the nigger got to him. That's from Of Mice and Men, Chapter 2. Here's an example from The Great Gatsby, Chapter 1. It's up to us, the white people, who are the dominant race, to watch out, or other races will gain control of things over time. That's in Chapter 1 of The Great Gatsby. One could argue that the reason why these novels are considered so influential is because of the language that they use, the important time eras that they represent, and the way the authors refuse to shy away from using everyday language that was so common during the times. The Great Gatsby is the tale of the rise and fall of a young, successful millionaire during the Roaring '20s, while both To Kill a Mockingbird and Of Mice and Men address extreme Southern racism during the height of the Great Depression. Here's a quote from Leo DiCaprio, who plays the lead role in the film adaptation of The Great Gatsby from 2013. The Great Gatsby is one of those novels that is talked about nearly 100 years later for a reason. Its story is incredibly nuanced and existential. He tells that to the USA Today in 2014. Here's a quote from Thaddeus Davis, a professor of African American literature at the University of Pennsylvania, about To Kill a Mockingbird. To Kill a Mockingbird explores themes of racial prejudice and injustice, as well as love and the coming of age of Scout and Jem, Atticus Finch's children. It was published just as the U.S. civil rights movement was gaining momentum and has stuck with readers across cultural lines. Here's a quote from Sneha Bengani of the Hindustan Times, writing about The Great Gatsby on her blog. By juxtaposing the sensibilities of the elite and the working class in The Great Gatsby, F. Scott Fitzgerald offers a stark contrast of how the selfishness, snobbery, and the indifference of one can control not just the lives, but also the deaths of people around them. But lately, many parents, students, and teachers have been petitioning to have books like these taken out of state's curriculums and off the shelves entirely at public schools across the country. Here's a quote from author Christian Wilson in 2017 when talking to the Office for Intellectual Freedom of the American Library Association. Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird is not the best book to teach white kids about racism because it grounds its narrative in the experiences of a white narrator and presents her father as the white savior. But many can argue that this tactic of strategically placing the white male in the book as a sort of savior figure was required in order to get people of the time to read the controversial piece that was already coming from a female author in the first place. According to 100 Banned Books, the Censorship Histories of World Literature, in 2008, a school board in Idaho developed an approval system to assess and remove books, including The Great Gatsby, from schools' reading lists after some parents complained that teachers had selected and were discussing books that contained vulgar, profane language and dealt with subjects inappropriate for students of that age. Well, like author Sneha Bengani said before, The Great Gatsby is a classic tale about how greed and self-absorption can negatively affect not just the ones exhibiting these traits, but also the people around them. This is an extremely important lesson for children to learn as early as possible. In this case, I'm not exactly sure there's any way to ensure that every participating party, meaning the ones who want the language to be abolished and those who want to keep it, can be satisfied. But I believe it's important to educate the public on the history of our country, the good and bad, no matter the cost. Without the presence of novels such as The Great Gatsby, To Kill a Mockingbird, and Of Mice and Men, many aspects, positive and negative, of our country's history would go forgotten. Though racism, debilitating greed, self-absorption, and many other negative personal traits still exist, it's important that we learn about all of these things in their extreme forms in order to ensure that our country and society never regresses that far again. So take these books seriously, and if you have younger siblings reading them right now, encourage them to read them seriously and not just skim over the information given in them to pass their week's reading tests. In a 2017 article titled A Defense of Banned Books, author Lisa Winter writes this: "The human experience can be messy at times. We're all biased by our own experiences about what the truths of reality really are, but a good book can help change all of that. A true education is challenging and difficult, but it's worth it when we get that deeper understanding of what it truly means to be alive." I couldn't agree more. Thank you.